Hi, and happy Mother's Day. I'm Melanie Krause. I'm the winemaker for Cinder Winery, but more importantly, I have the honor and privilege of being a mother. So today I thought it would be fun to have a little rosé tasting just for moms on Mother's Day. Here we are, 2020, and I'm in my living room here in my Boise house. My children are playing in their room, and my husband's cooking up brunch in the kitchen. So if there's background or children flitting in and out, you know why. Hopefully you guys are at home on Mother's Day getting spoiled in the same sort of manner by your families. So we have these 3 different wines we made this year, and normally we don't make 3 different rosés, but we did this year. So let's talk about why we did and how we made them and why they're different. I've got all 3 open, and I think that you guys should open them too. You don't have to drink them all today, don't worry. You can taste through the 3 with me, and then as long as you put the cork back in them, put them back in the fridge, they'll be fine for several days. So you can drink one over a couple days, and then the next one, and then the next one, they'll be fine if you drink them over the next week. So if everybody has their wines, let's see. I think I'll do a quick little tasting 101, just so you know what I'm going to be up to and what I do when I'm tasting wine or judging a wine. So the first thing I do is pay attention to the aroma. Try to think of something it reminds me of. Like, does it remind me of what type of fruits? Strawberry, watermelon. Is it sweet? Is it spicy? Does it remind me of flowers? Is it really perfumey? And then I take a sip and I pay attention to what the texture feels like in my mouth. And we winemakers call that the mid palate, when it's in your mouth. And then after I swallow, I really pay attention to the texture afterwards, and we call that the finish. So you'll hear me use those terms. And as you swallow and you take that first breath of air, a lot of those aromas come up through your sinuses, and you get another really good feel for the aromas at that moment. And pretty much aromas and flavor are the same thing, so I don't really distinguish them. When you hear me say aroma or flavor, they're somewhat synonymous. So I've ordered these in order of their color to start off with. So they're in order of Senso, and then the GSM, which stands for Grenache Syrah Mauvais, and then I've got the Syrah over here, and I'm going to taste them left to right. So if you want to order them that way too, that's great. Okay, I've got my notes here. I've got certain talking points I want to hit. So I think the first one we want to talk about is, well, why did we make 3 different rosés? Isn't a rosé a rosé a rosé? Like, what's it matter, and why would we bother making 3? Well, rosés, in essence, if you really boil it down, they're a white wine that you make from a red variety. So for every red variety that's out there on the planet, whether it's Cabernet, Cinsault, Syrah, something strange you've never heard of. Cinsault is probably something strange you've never heard of, but you can make a rosé with any red grape. So in theory, should be as many rosés as there are red grapes out in the world. In actuality, there aren't really. Certain rosés make better. Certain red wines make. Oh, hang on a second. Certain red varieties make better rosés than others. Like these ones that I'm showing you here that I've made, they're great for making rosé because you can pick the grapes really early, kind of underripe, and they still taste really nice. So let me give you an example. So when you're making rosé, you want to pick them young, like 22 Brix, which is similar to percent alcohol. It's a unit, percent sugar. It's a unit that we use for density, and it's close to percent sugar. So let's say roughly 22% sugar. Whereas if you were to pick the same grape for a red wine, I'd probably pick it somewhere between 24 and 26. So that would be the equivalent of leaving it on the vine for another several weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, to make that same grape variety into a red wine. All right, so another thing we should hit on is that all of these are made dry. Dry means that the yeast have eaten all the sugar, converted it into alcohol, and so there's no longer sugar left in them. So none of these are sweet, even though they are powerfully fruity. And so you may taste them and think you're tasting a sweet wine, but technically there's no sugar left in any of these. So they're all equal in that sense of being dry rosés. Okay, and we should talk now about the basic way that you make rosés and how is it different from a red wine or a white wine. So the main thing that you do differently when you're making whites versus making reds, it's all about skin contact time. So when you're making a white, you bring the grapes in from the field and you put them straight into the press and press the juice off of the skins and seeds. And you start making your wine with a tank of white juice. Whereas when you're making a red wine, you bring the grapes in, and I don't know if you recall, but when you bite a grape in half from the store, it's, it'll be pink or purple or whatever color on the outside on the skins, but the pulp is usually clear or greenish colored. There's none of that red or pink color in the pulp with almost all varieties. There's a couple exceptions, but none of these are exceptions. So the pulp is all clear. So when you're making a red wine out of these varieties, you have to get the color extracted out of the skins. So we will ferment red wines on their skins and their seeds for about a week to get all of that color and richness out of them. But when we're making a rosé, we essentially do that white wine making technique where we start with pink juice and we make it from there. And we've taken the skins and seeds and we've composted them. One little difference though, we do destem the grapes before we put them in the press, unlike with white wine where we throw the whole cluster with the stem and everything into the press. The reason that we do that destemming process is it causes a little bit of tearing to the grape skin, just enough tearing to get color to come out into the juice. And depending on the grape variety and the color we're trying to hit, we will, with some of them, we'll throw them right into the press, and with some of them, we'll let them soak for a short amount of time on the skins to get a little bit of color out. So let me give you an example. Syrah is such an incredibly rich, pigmented grape that we bring the grapes in, we destem them, and we put them right into the press. And we start pressing right away, and it takes about 2.5, 3 hours to get the press cycle done. And by the time we're done, it's already got this gorgeous deep pink color. You guys are probably familiar with my red Syrah, and it's so inky, right? It's almost so purple, it's almost black. It's just such a rich grape, and that's why Rosé of Syrah comes out so richly colored, such a deep pink. And then the Cinsault is on the other end of that spectrum. Cinsault, even though, and when you see it in the vineyard, it's got like a blackish blue skin color, but there's just not much pigment in it. So we can destem it and we'll soak it on the skins for about 12, sometimes 10, in that range of hours just to get it this pale of a pink. If we treat it the same way we did Syrah, we'd essentially get a white wine. So maybe just like a white wine that had just sort of like a slightly weird dark straw color or something. So Syrah, or Cinsault, sits on the skins for about 10 hours. And then this GSM, let's talk about it. So it's a blend of Grenache, Syrah, and Mourvèdre. Each one of those we made individually into rosé wines. And then once they were finished, we checked them, tested the blend, made sure we liked it, and then we blended them back in the cellar. So Grenache is a really pale rosé. Mourvèdre is a really pale rosé. And then Syrah is rich, of course, as you know. So when you blend the three together, you end up with something that's a little bit in the middle. And the reason that we don't just dump all of those three grapes into a bin together and ferment them, we would and we could, or we would if we could, but they don't ripen at the same time. So you have to pick each of those varieties at optimal ripeness, and it hardly ever works out that they're all ripe at the same time. So in this particular case, we harvested the Grenache first. It was actually the very first thing that came into our winery in this particular year. And so we started making it, and then a couple weeks later, we had some Syrah ready, and then 2 or 3 weeks after that, because Mourvèdre ripens very, very late, we finally had the Mourvèdre ripe, and so we harvested it and started making it into rosé. So we wait until the whole thing is done, and sometime in December, we check the wines and blend this wine together. Okay, so now that you understand about colors and why these are different, let's talk a little bit about just tasting them, what they taste like. So I'm going to reorder these, and feel free to do this with me if you want. I'm going to switch the GSM and the Cinsault so that I've got, on my left, I've got GSM, and then I've got Cinsault in the middle, and then I've got Rosé on the end. And the reason being is that now they're kind of in an order where they go leanest and cleanest to richest and roundest. So this GSM, I think, has really fresh, fruity aromas like raspberries or something. Hey, Rowan. How are you? What do you think? Is it good? My kids really like to smell the wines, and they particularly like the fact that when they drink wine, they have to spit every bit out, and so the spitting part is really fun for them. How are you doing, Charlie?
Good.
Good. Okay, so let's see. We were starting with the GSM here, which Rowan thought was a little bit stinky.
No.
You didn't?
It's just powerful.
Powerful. Okay. Rowan thinks that it's got powerful aromas. Okay, so I think it's pretty much on the red fruit characteristics. Like, think of something that's fresh and tart, like a cranberry or a raspberry. And then the finish, it's smooth. It's a little bit tart. It's really easy. And then when I moved to the Syrah, it seems a lot more flowery, a lot more perfumey or floral. So not like walking through the perfume aisle, but maybe like walking through an orchard when it's all in bloom or something. And then the texture is richer than the GSM, I would say. And it's also got just a little bit of a roughness. It's not rough. The wine's still smooth, but as compared to the GSM, it's definitely got like a hint of tannin there. And my guess is that the reason it's got a little bit more tannin than the other two is because with the Cinsault, we have to leave it on the skins for about 10 hours just to get this pale color. But the skins contain the tannin and the seeds contain the tannin, and they're in there too during that soak. And so we're pulling a little bit of tannin out into the Cinsault more than either of these other two varieties. And some people are going to like that, and some people aren't. You know, people have tons of different tastes, and so it always amazes me. I'll make a wine, I'll be like, oh, it's not my greatest wine. But then some of my customers will think it's the greatest wine I've ever made, and others will be more with me and like, it's not the greatest wine you've ever made. So some people are going to like the super smooth GSM, and some people are going to prefer that little bit more oomph at the finish of the Cinsault. And then the Syrah, this one to me is all fruit and roundness. You know, it's got really sweet fruits. It smells like it's going to be a sweet wine, right? And that's just the Syrah itself. It's such a powerfully fruity wine. I get like watermelon or strawberry out of the nose, and then the texture is just round, right? So as far as pairing these things go, don't stress out about it. The good thing about rosés is they are really versatile. They can pair with nearly anything. If I'm thinking about like my absolute ideal way to drink rosé, I would say I'm on a back deck in the sun, and I'm eating something like a gorgeous fresh summer salad that's got some goat cheese on it. Maybe it has some strawberries or berries in it. That would be totally awesome. On the other hand, if it's pizza night in the family, and you can order your pepperoni and cheese for your kids, and then like a chicken bacon with white sauce for you for the rosé pairing, so yummy, right? That's sort of my new obsession in pizza flavors. And a great pairing with rosé. So, guys, do you have something for me? Come here, Rowan. Come entertain people for a second. I think my family has some surprises for me. Rowan, what do you think about that one? How does it smell?
Can you move that pad, or I'll just put that right there.
Not as powerful as this one.
Yeah, not as powerful. Ooh, this looks yummy. Okay, so wow, super yum, guys. Oh my gosh. Joe, you should cook breakfast more often.
What did I get you there?
So I have French toast with stewed blueberries, it looks like, bacon, apples with some cinnamon on them, and scrapple. I don't know how many of you know what scrapple is, but it's a Pennsylvania specialty. Joe grew up in Pennsylvania, and so he loves his scrapple. It's like if sausage and cornbread got married and had a baby, they'd have scrapple. So it's almost like savory toast.
Yes. Oh.
What's that from?
Fossils.
Fossils?
Fossils teeth.
Why do you have those?
From my birthday.
When was your birthday?
2 days ago.
Yesterday?
Yes.
Yeah, yesterday. Do you guys want to try some?
Bacon stealer. Charlie's the bacon stealer.
Mm.
What? It's like we're talking to a friend.
Scrapple and Syrah is a pretty good combo. But whether you're eating chicken nuggets or something totally amazing, rosé is a pretty good bet on any night. It can pair with just about anything. So thank you guys so much for joining me. I hope you have a wonderful Mother's Day, and that you're enjoying something like this with some feasting and some relaxation, and maybe planting in your garden or something. And thank you for your support of Cinder. Everybody have fun and stay safe. Cheers.